Hi, welcome to Overlanding from Home. My name is Anton. I'm an avid overlander, lover of nature, and humanitarian by heart. The past while, I've always been interested in the outdoors, and I want to hear about other people's experiences and their rigs. Yes, the big rigs, the small rigs, everything they've done to design them and how they plan it. I hope you enjoy listening. Let's find out who today's guest is. Hello, fellow listeners, guys, girls, kids. Thanks again for signing in and listening to another great podcast. I'm pretty sure it's going to be as epic as the last bunch have been. And today I have a wonderful guy. He's from South Africa, living in San Diego. I'm not so sure how many years, but we'll find out. And he is undoubtedly one of the best wildlife photographers I think I've seen, and I've seen a bunch. And I can honestly say that because, Zander, every time I look at your pictures, dude, it's like I see the same picture for the first time every day. And I'm not even joking. So welcome to the podcast and welcome to the chat.
Wow, I'm so honored. Thank you so much, Anton. That's so kind of you to say, and love the show. Just gotta say that from the right off the start. It's a awesome show, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
No, it's very cool, and thank you. I know that we have, like some of the other guys, just started chatting, but we really hit it off the bat immediately. I think we both very like-minded and methodical, and know what we want to do, and part of that is going to touch base within the show. And I think I'd love to hear about some of your pictures. You also drive a 90 Defender, which is unfortunately up in Joburg and not in San Diego with you, but I know that you have a bunch of things planned and coming up. So I want to ask you a few questions and get some idea from you as to. I know part of your history was you had an accident, which we won't really divulge into, but you ended up after that going with your now wife on a 7-month trip into a variety of countries in Africa. That's right, eh?
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's exactly right.
Which countries did you visit or want to visit, or was it just like a lucky packet? Did you throw a bunch of names in a hat and say, let's see where it takes us?
Sure, yeah. No, I think any overlanding trip, there's some unplanned places that pop up. But no, we started off with a little bit of prep work on this side, on the state side, and knew that we definitely wanted to see a few spots like the Tanzania was on our radar. We never thought we'd go to Zambia, so that was definitely not part of the trip. But we did do 7 countries. We started off in South Africa, and then first we didn't even know exactly how we are going to be traveling. We weren't overlanding was not the first option that came to mind until my wife said, "You know what? Why don't we just buy a 4x4 and drive into all these countries?" And I was like, "Absolutely!" And this was already while we were staying at a family member's house, one of my mom's house in Cape Town.
Okay.
So that's how it all started.
Little did she know what she was getting into, I guess.
Little did all of us know. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's epic. I mean, it's definitely the way to do it. I think traveling. I think some basic prep in traveling is a good start, and then learning as you go along the way. I mean, I don't see much about your vehicle. Did you plan to stay in or on your vehicle? Well, obviously not in. It's a 90, but you had a rooftop tent. Did you do the whole gas cooking thing? I mean, what on that side did you prep?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We on the vehicle side, we bought the 90. At first, it was more so for my family has had a history of Land Rover in their in their like heritage, but basically we decided on the Land Rover because it's such an iconic vehicle for Africa, and because our whole purpose was to film, and I had the drone, so we wanted to get very iconic shots in Africa.
Yes.
That's what first started us looking into Land Rovers, and we came across this butte in Doornpoort, South Africa, that was sitting there, and I got it for steel. It already came with the rooftop tent. It had the jerry cans already rigged on there, and so it was very kitted already. So I didn't have to do too much. And being a novice at the time in the 4x4 world, I did a lot of research on the spot and kind of prepped and bought a few things, customized it a little bit my ways, changed it from crazy enough, changed the tires from mud tires to all terrain.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was definitely a learning experience. Didn't think myself as an overlander at first, because we actually were going to purchase the vehicle and then sell it when we got back to South Africa
Yes.
once we made our full circle. So yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, so no, so that, it started off first not being very planned, but then as we prepped and saw, okay, well, we're going to need certain things for this trip, and then started to figure out the roadmap of what that's going to look like going into Mozambique and then cutting across Malawi, and then up into Tanzania and then back through Zambia, Zim, and then back into SA, and then Swaziland at the very end. They're now Eswatini.
It sounds, dude, it sounds amazing. It's a great round trip, and you know, there's always people that and other podcasters that talk to me, and the one guy, Emery from Turkey, Emery said to me, it was like, dude, if I could drive from Turkey to Cape Town through Africa in my Defender, I'd be leaving tomorrow, you know, and he said, well, I'm
Absolutely.
going to take it, you know, it'll take me a month. And I'm like, dude, if you did it in a month, I'd send you back because you rushed it, you
Yes,
know?
I could not agree more. I mean, we could have shortened our trip for sure, but I think what really sparked our interest in going by land basically is the fact that you see so much more if you ground yourself and if you actually drive and see every little spot, and that's how you get to see or go to the off the beaten path
Yeah.
places, and that's what I think overlanding is all about, and that's how my wife and I fell in love with it, and would never ever, I wouldn't sell that vehicle for all the money in the world at this point, really.
No, you know, I think anyone that drives a good overlanding vehicle, and I think luckily the Defender has been classed amongst many that even don't drive it to be the overlanding iconic vehicle for outdoors. I mean, I was with a wonderful guy by the name of Blaze, and he drives one of the newer Land Cruisers, the 76, I
Sure.
think it is, and
So,
um, he said to me, he said, listen, you know, what I buy won't know, but my problem is I just can't staring at yours, you know, and it's just I took it as a compliment, you know. I think
yeah, that's a
my vehicle alone is quite I mean, obviously everything on my vehicle is functional. There's nothing, if it looks cool, great. I'm lucky, but I don't care how it looks. It's more about functionality. And I get a lot of people that stop me to ask me questions and look at it, and kids especially, which is great because kids look at it. I had one kid once salute me in the vehicle, as you know.
it's amazing.
And I was like, that's pretty awesome. So I saluted him back and tried to drive off faster than him, but his dad was in a Porsche. So I couldn't really catch up, but I didn't
Well,
care.
you got
You
the
know, I was like,
Puma,
yeah,
so
that
yeah.
that kid's young and he knows, you know, it's pretty awesome. I flipping loved it. Now, tell me,
That's
I'm looking at
amazing.
at one of the photos here. Let me see. It's in Serengeti, which is superb. But you look like what, about 6 foot 4, 6'5"?
Yeah, you nailed on the head there, 6'4".
Six
So
six
so
four.
yeah.
So how did you fit in the front of the vehicle? I mean,
Yeah, that's a great
that's a
question. I
tight
mean,
one.
that is definitely, and going back to your question before too, is it's the 90s, so it's the shorter version, the two door, but with the seat, I kind of customized it a little bit where it could push back just slightly,
Yes,
but because it does have that little bull bar rail behind it,
that's right.
behind the seat, but we made do, and it was very cramped, and initially we had sworn, okay, we're going to save money, we're going to be very conservative, and sleep on the rooftop tent as needed, and then basically live out of this vehicle. We had a whole production kit because the whole purpose of the trip was not just to go into Africa, but to really tell stories,
Yes.
and it's more specifically for wildlife conservation and community-based conservation. So my wife started her nonprofit 7 years ago, and that's really what fueled this trip. Because we wanted to do something different and do something good with our lives, and kind of gift back. And also in return, we had no idea how much we received in return. But living out of the vehicle was a challenge because it was very cramped. We had a 40-liter fridge in there. We had we arrived with 7 bags
Yeah.
from the
Good
States
luck with that,
because we
dude.
also yeah, exactly. So it was chock and block full, if you know what I
Yeah, of
mean.
course.
So but basically, yeah, no, we made the best of it. I did, drive wide-legged,
Yes. Yes.
so,
Knees
but it was
out,
a
ankles in. No, of course. I know all about it.
absolutely. But it's funny you were talking about the saluting. We right before we got to the gate of Mozambique, entering from the Kamati Port side, um, we got saluted almost, or we got a cheer from another Land Rover passing us
Yes.
in the opposite direction. And this person was waving, honking, and all that, flashing his lights. I thought maybe it's a traffic cop up ahead. But then we slowly started seeing more and more of this on the road with a few landy owners going past us, and the community that
Yes.
there is within the Land Rover community, and everybody, here it's Jeep Wranglers and they have their community, but I love the overlanding community that I was made aware of on this trip, and it just gives you peace of mind and also a sense of camaraderie. So it was epic. It was absolutely epic.
The whole Land Rover community and specifically Defender, the big thing amongst us is to wave at each other or just give the short nod, or
Sure.
move the hand into the window so you recognize that the other vehicle. And you don't really get that out of Land Cruisers or the Nissan community and that. And I'm actually I've been getting quite tired of the banter going backwards and forwards, and the constant ragging of Defenders that break, and the this and the that, and many people don't look at the volume of work these vehicles do. Sorry, they go into stringent
Yeah.
places, they drive long hours, things go wrong, and I'm pretty sure that I can go into Google and find vehicles, find Toyotas and Nissans and Fords that have done all the wrong things and have all broken down. And I've actually now started any vehicle equivalent to mine, regardless of what it is. I've actually started doing the same thing, waving at the guy. And I've had a
Yeah.
few Toyota, specifically Land Cruiser guys look at me like a little bit squiff, like a little bit sideways, going, like, what are you, like,
Yeah.
what,
Yeah. Why are you so happy?
why are you waving at me with a smile, and I don't care. I mean, I'm just happy to do it. There is a big difference though that I found between different drivers of different vehicles. So someone driving
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
a Fortuna has a different mentality to a Land Cruiser. And I mean, I have a I
Yeah.
have a story in Namibia. I'm not so sure if I've mentioned it on the show before, but I was in the middle of Land in Namibia, which is amazing. And the freeway, inverted commas, when you're off road, is the riverbed. So you drive through the
Yeah.
river because that's the fastest way that you can go, which is not necessarily very fast. So, and this
No.
this Fortuna guy calls me over. He's got his son in the vehicle, and there was a Land Cruiser behind him. He was in the front, and he calls me over like frantically. I'm like, anyway, I turn my vehicle off. I go up the bank. I go see the guy, and I'm like, everything fine. He goes, oh, I just wanted to see if your Land Rover could drive, or if it was broken down. And I looked at him and I was like, do you feel better? Do you feel like
Yeah,
you
right.
completely accomplished what you wanted? And I gave him like a pretty
Sure.
bland look. And his son looked at him, and there was that quiet moment where he looked at me, he looked at his son, I looked at him, and I was like, are you done now? Can I move on? Are you finished with what you were trying to achieve? He goes, oh, I was only giving a joke. I'm like, dude, please, we're in the middle of nowhere. Do you really think it's going to
Yeah.
matter right now? And he was like, oh, I was, and,
Yeah.
and the son looked at him as if to say, oh, okay, well, Dad, you kind of screwed that one up. And I just put it in first gear, waved, said cheers, and I drove off. So, that's the type of thing I'm trying to
That's
get away from.
yeah, no, absolutely, and you make a great point there. For me, I try to be very democratic, obviously, with other vehicles and with other people's causes and their reasons behind the wheel. But yeah, I get frustrated too. But going back to what you were saying about the this constant thing that you hear about, oh, your Landy's leaking or this or that or the other, is it broken down, or the difference between a Toyota and Land Rover is, you see more of them on the side of the road
Yeah,
or whatnot.
yeah, true.
It dates back to I used to watch the Camel Trophy, that was going on for 20
Yes,
years, since 1980 to 2000, and those were all Landies, the Discoveries, the Defenders, and all that stuff. So I don't know what people are talking about. My experience, fortunately enough, I had one minor issue, but I didn't have a single tire replaced, and I had two spares on the
okay,
vehicle, one on the back, and then we had a gentleman in Nelspruit customize a internal holder. So I took all four seats out that are facing each other in
that's
the
right.
back,
Yes,
took all those out, and he customized a little metal holder for us for a second spare. And I didn't have one flat, not one flat. And we went through rivers and sharp rocks and all that kind of stuff. So that was very fortunate. And the only trouble I had from a functionality standpoint was on the way back, as we just crossed Malawi, just crossed Tanzania to Zambia, that border. I was trying to accelerate and go past a big
yeah,
truck, and sure enough, no gas, and it flows like it's as if the vehicle's in
yeah.
neutral, and I again couldn't get any gas, and I'm in the opposite side of the road now. So then I backed off. The truck went back behind and pulled over, and tweaked a few things, and it was ended up just being dust on the actual
Yes,
sensor. So because it's fuel
that's
injected,
right.
it's got a sensor on it,
A
exactly.
mass
So
airflow
so
sensor.
exactly. So it was just that. It was just dirty sensor, and there we were off again. So no issues. That's why I swear by Hettie. We dubbed her Hettie after my grandmother,
Lovely.
who's the great granddaughter of Paul Kruger,
Oh wow,
and so
that just
yeah,
gave
we
me
dubbed her
goosebumps.
Hettie. Yeah, man. It's so. I've always had a passion for wildlife, and obviously growing up in Africa, and seeing these Land Rovers on the road. So it now is my family, and I consider myself an overlander, and we're waiting for our next trip. So we're very, very
Well,
fortunate.
I know that you and I are talking about, well, we did briefly mention yesterday about trying to coincide a trip with my humanitarian work. And I think if it's possible that we can cross paths, it would be amazing. But I want to ask you just not what fridge, you have a 40 liter, is it an Engel, Snowmaster,
It
what
was
was it? Do you remember?
yeah, it was a national,
Okay.
I believe
National Luna.
was the brand, and yeah, exactly. So we had one of those, which we bought at Outdoor Warehouse, or yeah, Mega 4x4 or Outdoor Warehouse,
Okay.
one of those. And again, we were pretty novice at these equipment that we needed, but we did a lot of research. I like to Google everything, so I'll do research before I make a purchase. I read 5 reviews on it, and then I'll purchase something. But the fridge was kind of a last minute thing,
Yes.
and then we sold it when we got home because we didn't need it anymore. And honestly, it was kind of overkill for the trip. We just needed essentials. So I'd love to have a built-in fridge where I customize it to the center console.
Okay.
But I'll pick your brain on that because you're the expert
Well, don't
later
hold
on.
your
But yeah,
breath
no.
there, but okay.
So yeah, just more built-in customizations were our saving grace on this trip, basically. But yeah, no, the fridge made do. It kept a few cool drinks cold, and when we were forced to initially we saw we weren't gonna take or solicit bribes or anything like
Yes.
that for the traffic police, especially in Mozambique. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, we got
sad.
pulled over. Once we hit Tanzania, we got pulled over like 16
Yeah.
times. And we kept the extra Coca-Cola cold for the cop
Yeah.
just to say thanks for not giving us a ticket,
That's normal, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
there's many groups of overlanders now that are on because there's a big Mozambique overlanding group that you actually pay for, and it's very worth it because these guys are on the ball. If you have a problem, you can get in touch with them because unfortunately within Africa there are challenges of traffic cops pulling you over and creating a problem. Um,
Oh,
if it's a
absolutely.
normal Coke, then fine. Listen, it costs guys like you and I nothing for a normal Coke, but there are guys that take it a different level. So I have a problem that I have with your vehicle. At the top there, you've got two 20-liter jerry cans. It was for fuel or water?
So one was for water and the other one was for the diesel.
For diesel, okay. So have you got covers over them?
Yeah, so I have covers for them. I've purchased the those zip over covers for them. And honestly, we didn't even really ever tap into it. The only time we tapped into the jerry cans was on the craziest road I've ever experienced, which was on the southern side of Zambia when we crossed from the national park North Luangwa, which I highly recommend. It's so untouched. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's beautiful. And we were the only vehicles at the beginning of the season, so they haven't even trekked the roads yet. And sure enough, we crossed the pontoon and went over to the south side, and we're following along the river. And then slowly but surely, and I had full tank. I mean, I think I had a 60-liter tank there, and then also the jerry can on top, and really close to running out. If we didn't have the jerry can, we would have not made it to our destination, which was the South Luangwa National Park.
But they got covers on the jerry cans.
That was probably
that's classed as glamping, dude. I mean, what do you need covers on jerry cans for? That's
You're so right. You can see that's don't throw me under the bus.
Dude,
like that,
if I see a photo with jerry cans and that stuff like that on, I'm definitely
you got to see it from the productions. You got to see it from the production standpoint. You know what I mean? It's more for the camera, so to speak. You know, when the drone goes over, you want to make sure it looks sharp.
I can accurately
I'm just teasing. No, you're all about functionality, and then sometimes I like to see a little bit of myself as being balanced.
Yes.
So I like functionality, but I like a little splash of
glamour, of glamour.
Yeah, sure.
So
but I had a rude awakening on this trip.
Zander, I'm just a big fan of the power of one. And when you overland, you not you as you, but people, carry a lot of clutter. Like you said, you arrived with something like 7 bags. 7 bags wouldn't fit in a 90 Defender. So I'm pretty sure you had to eradicate yourself of a bunch of clothing and really choose what you needed. And I have a 20-liter jerry can behind my middle seat in my 110, and that's my quick one that if I need to get to it. And then I've got the two 20 liters, so I've got 40 liters on the roof that I will tap into if I really, 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 really have to, that's a big deal. But I mean, so let me ask the question. You have a fridge that you say that you hardly ever use. So you did stay in the rooftop tent. What did you use to cook in the 7 months, or did you mostly try and stay in lodges and?
Well, we wanted to stay in the vehicle as much as possible. So we majority of the time, I'd say about 80% of the time, we were in the rooftop tent, and we were cooking with our gas stove. We did have gas canisters too up there.
Yes, I saw that.
Tapping into those. Even at some point when we were in the Serengeti with the tent open, we at nighttime there's no fences like in Kruger or anything like that. So you have to be very careful and mindful of the wildlife around you. So we literally cooked on top of the roof, plugged the little gas stove right on top into the gas can, and then cooked eggs up there or whatever we wanted to cook. And so it was very functional in that sense. But yeah, gas stove and the fridge we did keep for cold stuff. Like you might know already, we don't eat a lot of meat.
Yes.
I actually now have since stopped eating any sort of meat for a year and a half now. But definitely we had these prepackaged those. You basically boil water and you pour it in there.
Yes.
And it becomes like a stew or something. Yes. So we had minimal stuff that doesn't occupy too much space or have too much of a carbon footprint.
So to go, well, whether it's completely off or on the topic, I've actually did a great podcast with a guy called Petar. He was one of the first guys that came on board and chatted to me, and he's in Serbia, and he's a 100% vegetarian, and he doesn't even have a fridge. He takes a cooler box, and I'm going to do a podcast with him about overlanding as a vegetarian. Because
that's amazing.
I think it's completely epic, dude. I mean, everyone in Africa eats meat in a certain way, whether it's a nyama choma. I mean, I've eaten. Half the time, I think I don't even know what I've eaten because I've been in countries that have been questionable. So I had like one of the
Absolutely.
best meals that I've ever had was, and I went back 3 times, was for camel stew in Mogadishu. Um,
Wow.
in Ethiopia, I've eaten, I think, probably the best, healthiest food out there. In fact, Ethiopian food, I think, is the one of the healthiest food next to Mongolia. Um, and
Oh,
their
wow.
bread they make is incredible. I mean, it's amazing. It's got nothing hectic in it. It's fantastic. Anyway, so I think eating off. I wouldn't say off the land because you can't just go and pick because you just don't know. And but
Sure.
going into shops to buy veggies can be a challenge, and there's only so many 2-minute noodles and tomato cans that you can use and buy, and I think people don't really absorb what you can do. There are so many options. One of the best things that I do, or us as my wife and I, is we get those big mushrooms, and we put a bit of olive oil in it, garlic, and cheese on top, and we put that on the fire, and that can be a whole meal. I mean, those
Sounds
things are
brilliant. Yeah.
amazing. In fact, I had it 2 nights ago. Last night,
Yeah,
no,
no, it's
I had it
delicious.
last night. I lie, and that's the way to do it. I mean, I just think it's fantastic. Eating
Yeah.
eating meat is great, but not all the time. I think there's a time
No,
and a place.
you're so right. I think that would be a great podcast. I'd love to tune in on that one, and that the one that you had before with Patal, right? He was amazing with his experience. But I think also just eating healthy on the road is one of the biggest challenges of overlanding is eating healthy.
Completely
I think
agree.
a lot of people don't talk about that. So there's the technical side and the logistical side, but there's also the health side of things, and I love that you touch on that. So I would look forward to
I think
that
it's very
podcast.
important, and again, I think it's an African thing that meat is a priority, and it's
Staple, yeah.
correct. Staple is a very good word, and in certain cases, rightly so, but within reason. And there's such a big stigma around meat, and people need to recognize it must move away. I've started doing a lot more healthier breads. I put pitted dates in my
Yeah, yeah.
bread and I make it on the fire, and it tastes
Wow.
amazing. It's got no sugar, no salt, nothing like that, and it's just flour, water, and chopped up pitted dates. I mean, anyone can make it anywhere. It's fantastic, and it's a lot healthier than what you buy in the store. It's a lot more fun.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a lot more chilled than what you get pretty much anywhere else. And if people a lot of South Africans make bread and potjies in that. But again, with the potjie comes
Yeah.
with meat. So,
Meat.
you have
Yeah.
to choose
Yeah.
choose your
No, I
battle.
missed that. I missed the food there. Yeah, you're so right.
So rooftop tent we've covered. The tires look like the general grabbers, or
Yeah, I have
the Wranglers.
Wranglers
Sorry,
on
those
there.
are
I had
those are what they pretty much
yeah.
come out with. Um,
Yeah, I had to change these from muds to all-terrain just because I had heard so many stories about the road that I was going to take. The path that we were choosing is going to be mostly, on tar, and then with the occasional off-roading. I'm glad I stuck with the Wranglers again. I had zero punctures. I think it's an awesome brand, awesome tire. My dad worked for Goodyear
yes,
for many, many years, so I
good.
swear by these tires. But I've also heard great things about BF Goodrich, obviously, and Coopers and stuff. So. These tires were awesome. I highly
Tires are
recommend
such a
them.
personal, like everything, tires, tent, fridge, they're all very personal, and
Yeah,
it's just such a everyone takes what they buy for themselves seriously, and they try and push over. I mean, I'm a big Cooper fan, but if you want BFGs,
absolutely.
go for it. They're a good tire. There's a time and a place
Yeah,
for all of them, and I think I want to ask you. So, on your vehicle, what was the best thing that you loved doing or having on your vehicle?
that's a great question. So we had the vehicle when I purchased it. Like I said, the person I purchased it from was a very avid overlander and great experience. And he had already kitted it out with the dual battery system. So there was an extra battery under the passenger seat. that we could tap into and utilize to run the fridge. I wanted it off the vehicle itself so it could run without the vehicle having
Yes.
to be on. So tapped into that, and then also we had all of our production equipment. So we had cameras, laptops, cell phones, the drone, like I said earlier. So tapping into that second battery system was great. And I didn't have to run the engine to recharge it and all that kind of stuff throughout the night because we were actually producing. My wife was editing the videos in the tent in the middle of Serengeti or wherever we were, and could easily get some power. That was definitely one of my favorite mods. And then my absolute favorite, what I would say, is the secret compartments throughout the vehicle. Just because we had heard a few horror stories of people getting pulled over or held up by some bandits up in Tanzania. We had luckily not ran into much of that at all. One situation to
Yes.
speak of with guys with machetes, but really quickly made moves and got out of there.
Well, maybe you should
But
speak
secret
about it.
compartments to hide,
It sounds pretty gnarly.
yeah. Well, we came to a roadblock, and in Africa, not everybody's in official uniform, so you don't know if it's a policeman, a
Yes.
military person, a government official, because the guy's in skivvies or his
Yes.
regular clothes or whatever and and there was a group of people, and they had a little man-made stanchion put in the front of the road, or like a roadblock, and they were demanding money, and it didn't look official to me, so I questioned it. And at this point, I was not as timid as I was in the very
Mm.
beginning of the journey. Yes sir, no sir,
Yeah.
3 bags full sir. It was more so, okay guys, how can I help you? And then I had to, and they were started banging on the window, so I instead of dropping the window, I literally, and I shouldn't have done this, but I opened the door and
Yes.
pushed it on
Yes.
them real quick, and then I gunned it, and they didn't want me to break their barrier, so they opened the gate, and I
Lovely.
just went through it. And as I went by, they hit the car with his hand again, yelling. But like you could definitely see, it was just civilians trying to
Trying to
make a
take a
quick
shot.
buck, and I just wasn't having any
Yeah.
of it at that
Yeah,
on the
good,
journey.
good for you. And I think if you recognize it from the beginning, and with any traveler, you really have to have your head screwed on right. I mean, I had a friend that went to Mana Pools in Zimbabwe, and he was told, no, you have to book now, you have to book in advance. It's better for you, and the whole story. And this has got nothing to do with your type of scenario, but taken advantage of. He ended up paying something like
Yeah,
$600 a night for one person, which is completely nuts,
yeah, yes, yeah,
and
that's
he messaged
incredible.
me, and he says, listen, I think I've just been taken as a fool here. I mean, these guys have he spent 4 nights there, $600 a night. That's pretty hectic when it should have been something like maybe $110 a night. So I don't
Yeah,
even know
that's
what the price
ludicrous.
is
No, that's robbery
for
right there.
minor pool, but this is unfortunately you. If you do your homework like you did, you said you spent a good amount of time on Google, then you know where you're going and what you're doing. Oh, talking about going, what maps did you use? Did you use a cell phone, or did you buy the Tracks for Africa?
Yeah, you're probably gonna make fun of me for this again, but
Oh,
I heard about Tracks for Africa. We relied on we definitely had the first thing we did is when we crossed over into any country, right at the border, we would buy some SIM cards and we would get access to
yes,
Wi-Fi as we could, or cell phone service. So we relied heavily on Google Maps, but that was after we discovered okay, TomTom
okay,
maps weren't the best. So I had a TomTom. It was good initially, but then some roads it just was completely off with the terrain and also some distances. There were some glitches, and then it would show you that you wouldn't be on the road. I'm literally on this one road, and it's showing me I'm like 15 miles over on the other side, or 8 kilos
yeah,
on the
yeah.
other side. So we relied heavily on Google Maps. I think that was a great and satellite images, so I could see the terrain and all that
I
kind of
won't
stuff.
mock you on that one because I'm a big fan of Google Maps, so I think, as you know, my vehicle was broken into and they took all of my navigation stuff, and um, I've just
Yeah,
now bought a iPad Mini for that exact reason. So I can put
smart.
all the maps on it, so I can get Tracks for Africa online, for example, Google Maps,
Yeah,
Maps.me, Map Out, and a bunch of other tracking maps and social media and all of that on one device, and I can track exactly where I'm going. Because if you get the Wi-Fi and 3G, then you get the GPS on the 3G, on the Wi-Fi, on the 3G. Sorry. So
Smart.
that gives me complete functionality compared to buying a TomTom or a Garmin. If I buy those devices again, I'm stuck with
Right.
only those apps for those devices. They're locked, and that just
Exactly.
wasn't appealing to me. So that's the route that I'm going now. And in fact, because of some of the places that I go are remote and there's nothing. In fact, Google Maps doesn't even pick
Yeah.
up 3 of the villages that I'm going to on my humanitarian trip.
Wow.
And I bought a Garmin InReach Mini, which is a GPS device with satellite, and that connected
Awesome.
to the device as an app gives me complete functionality on tracking, on mapping, and texting. So you pay for the service, but I can send a text to my wife and say, "Listen, I'm here for the night. I didn't make my end place because the road was bad." I can just type something and send it, and that's fine. So it's pretty. Mapping is a big deal because you can get lost easily, and I mean we got lost for about 3 hours in Botswana last year, just coming through past Moremi and north of Maun. So we ended up. I actually have photos. We ended up having to stop, pull over, check the maps, and the road that was given to us by the Garmin was wrong. So
Absolutely. No, I've had similar experiences.
we
You're
we
so
ended up
right.
having to retrack, and we got there into a little campsite, amazing campsite called Kaziikini, and they were running around, and I had 2 flat tires, and I'm under the vehicle trying to plug the one puncture, and they're running around saying, "Listen, do you want any beers and do you want food?" And we're like, "No, listen, come back just now." They're like, "No, we need it now." And I'm like, "Listen, I'm busy now. Can you come back?" No, we can't. I'm like, "Well, what's wrong?" Anyway, no. The
Yeah.
elephants and the lions have already started moving around, and they need to get back to their kraal. And I was like, "Guys, just drop off 4
Wow.
beers, or I think it was 10 beers, and go. Don't hang around." And literally 6 minutes, I counted 6 minutes after that, we started hearing the lions roar. And 1 o'clock in the
Amazing.
morning, let me go back to lions. So if any of my listeners don't know, you can be 5 kilometers or 500 meters from a lion's roar and you don't know the distance. So you can't actually gauge the distance of a lion's roar. It's very, very scary. So you hear
That's
this thing
absolutely true. That's
and
absolutely
you
true.
know the direction, but you're like, well, it could be 400 meters from me, or it could be 4 kilometers. You just don't know. And we then
You're
quickly
so
gathered
right.
our food, got everything, and headed off into our tents. And 1 o'clock in the morning, Zander, this is no joke, 1 o'clock in the morning, we hear this huge "Bwah!" We all sit up in the tents. And it was an elephant, which sounded like it was about 50 meters away from us. And we all completely just shat ourselves. And none of us slept until the morning.
Ooh.
We all just like unzipped the tent quietly,
Oh,
looked out,
wow.
and there was an elephant that came through our tent, through our campsite, and obviously just decided to have a bit of a splurge with his mates that were like probably 10 kilometers down the road or 5 kilometers. And yeah, it was
Oh,
we didn't sleep very
that's
well from 1 o'clock onwards. It was an interesting one. But
You see, to me, that sounds magical. We had the similar experience in Serengeti. Our very first night opening up our tent up in the rooftop, and the previous night apparently there was some tourists that had camped on the ground with their ground tents. And long story short, at night we had just gone to sleep, and I just hear like little laughing, and I'm like, "Is there a child outside?" And I look
yeah,
again, and I hear
yeah,
like a cry out, and all of a sudden it's a bunch of hyena and a matriarch, and they scavenging around for leftovers. And you're supposed to take your trash out, but these people left their trash there, so they were obviously entertained by that. And then the next moment, again, like you were saying, so truthfully,
yeah,
you hear a roar,
yeah,
and you hear ooh, this heavy bass, and it hits the back of my spine, and I sit up. And I don't know if this line's in my tent or if it's
yeah,
five like you said 500 meters away. But sure enough, I zip open the tent, and here's this beautiful male lion, and you could see his breath in the air, just
yes,
standing glaring because he had heard the hyena. and came to check it out. So, magical moments. But you're so right. You got to be careful in those moments. But
Yeah, you
when
have
you're
to choose
exposed to the
your
elements and
battles,
the
but that's
wildlife
what you
like
go
that.
for. It's only Americans that get charged by lions and Kruger. So, I mean, most of us are pretty fine. You're kind of halfway there. Your wife, I'm not, we need to double check. But I think I'm only joking. You get some very
Yeah,
special
no,
people out there, and it can be challenging. So,
of course,
I just
yeah.
ask people, stay in your vehicles. Don't get out unless you know that you're safe,
Absolutely.
unless you know that it's going to be okay. If you have to have a toilet break, make sure someone's watching over
Exactly.
you and you're not far from the vehicle. These are basics that people should really should really.
Yeah, 100%. But they get complacent, and then things
Sure,
happen.
sure.
So you
So
got to be
listen, I
aware
think we've
at times.
covered,
That's very true.
some really, really epic points here, and I want you, to tell me about your conservation work and your photography. I mean, I know that you obviously take it seriously. It's your living, is that right? The photos and the videos and that, but the conservation is obviously you've partnered with certain people. I mean, if you can just share with me some of those scenarios, I'd really like to learn some more.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so it is definitely a passion of ours. Like I said, my wife started the nonprofit project Conservation. You can go to the org page there and check us out. She started it 7 years ago. She's a conservation biologist. She has a master's in that, a master's in media. So I went to film school. So the whole mission of Project Conservation, if I can speak on it, she'd be much better at it than I would. But basically, it's to utilize media and regift media and marketing and storytelling to these sanctuaries, these
Yeah.
wildlife causes, the community, and so forth, who are directly impacted by wildlife and conservation. To regift that and to say, hey, we'll come in. If you grant us access, we'll tell your story. And it is a challenge to get funding. You try to write for grants and stuff like that. But we since realized that having this passion, you have to kind of source it and you have to fuel it somehow. And now that's more so through my photography, which I'm selling prints on, and also that goes back to the cause. So half would be donated to our
Yes.
cause, and half would be to continue my photography passion. And then with the storytelling. Same thing with our production of videos. We share these to these sanctuaries and we tell their story, and hopefully that'll pique interest from foreign investment and or just people who love wildlife and want to help donate or go work at their sanctuary or volunteer and so forth. So we just try to fuel it that way. And then my wife is now also in the
Okay.
process of starting her own brand and working with women's group in Africa to start
Yes. Yes.
creating jobs and opportunity that we could bring back here to the stateside and hopefully
Yeah. Listen. I
continue that
really,
charity work.
I think it's amazing what you guys are doing, and it's such a big deal. Finding funding is a big deal. I know. I mean, to get humanitarian work covered in Africa is a huge task. Um, and Americans and Europeans have fantastic hearts and are very helpful. And if you can partner them, which is exactly like what you've done. I mean, the one I'm looking at now is the rhino and wildlife conservation. I mean, rhinos are incredible passive animals until you cross their
Yeah.
path at a close range. Elephants
Oh
are
yeah,
one of
no,
my all-time
absolutely.
favorites. I think it's amazing. And if you can tell the stories that
Yeah,
people
they're
recognize,
magical.
and this is something that I try and do, is to try and get people to come, or a video guy to come and video what I do, to show how these communities don't have, like what we have going to a mall, all of these simple things. And it's the same for wildlife. No,
Absolutely.
we need more voices for wildlife. Poaching is a massive problem. It's just I really it's pretty epic,
You're
and your
so right.
photography is incredible, and I think what you and your wife are trying to do is just amazing. I would like to chat with her and get a lady's perspective on traveling with a South African male living in America. If it was worth it or not, I don't know.
In a No, it was absolutely worth it. And
Yes.
just to say something, just in response to that, you're so right, and it all starts with the community, and especially in the situation we're in now with this COVID outbreak. It all this whole issue traced back to wildlife trade, illegal or legal, and it
Yeah.
infiltrates society more than we could ever know. So I think it's huge, and it's now on our doorstep. So conservation is really, a way that I see the future goes towards, and people now being more woke to this big pandemic going around, and understanding that wildlife needs to be safeguarded and kept wild, versus trying to tame
Yes.
them or sell them
Yes.
on the markets and eat them and so forth and consume them. So I think we're in a stage where, especially now with Tiger King too, where and that's for another chat, but basically where we now are more
Yes.
aware of how
I
we're
haven't
all
watched it.
connected,
I know there's
and
been
it's
massive
so
talk
vital,
about
you
it, and
know.
I'm kind of a bit scared to watch it because I get really really angry with animal cruelty and caging animals like lions and tigers and all of those amazing things in your backyard for your own use is something that I really really battle with. And I heard that he's in jail. I don't know if it's true. I just hope he stays there. If it's not for anything other than
Yeah,
animal
no, it's
cruelty.
tough, man. It's tough. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a gut-wrenching story, but they don't really, and it's a shame of it. It's more of a human story than it's there's a
Yes.
big entertainment value, and I don't say that lightly. Where the story's crazy, it's a ludicrous story, but they don't focus so much on the animals. But I think the move next would be definitely to shine light on what this breeding does, and even with these social influences that you see now with certain people posting pictures with little
Yes.
lion cubs in their backyard. That's just, to me, is appalling. They say it's for a good cause, but it absolutely does no good for that animal. They're bred in captivity. It's a huge risk to manage these wild animals, and it's a costly thing. So you can't just focus on tourism and all that kind of stuff. You have to breed them, sell them, whether it's on the market or black market. So, you have to be really careful and do
Yes.
your, like, just like you prep for overland trip. You have to do your due diligence, and really, if you want to take initiative, and if you want to see these animals, really do your research online, and see what the cause and the sanctuary and these zoos that they claim to be are about. If they have no information, or if they're not open giving you that information, then be a little bit hesitant, and maybe pick a different spot. So, but I think the
Yes.
world's moving into a more woke state, and I'm positive, and I'm optimistic for
Well,
the
it sounds
next
like
step of
it
our
sounds
journey
amazing,
in
and
this world.
what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to put all the links of their websites and stuff like that and social media below on Instagram and all of that, and even on the podcast channel, so you can touch base with them directly if you have any suggestions or donations for them. Listen, Xander, I really appreciate your time, dude. It's been completely epic, and I really love hearing how it all worked out. I mean, 7 months with your wife in a completely different area and scenario. I think it's just totally amazing, and it's something that you will never ever forget.
No, absolutely, Anton, and I'm so blessed to be on this conversation, and I'm so excited to potentially work with you on your humanitarian work. I'm excited to check all that out, and hopefully our paths cross. I know we'll stay in touch, and I'm looking forward to even more of these podcasts, and being a part of this community that
I
you've
think what I'm going to
cultivated. So
have
I
to do is
appreciate
get
you
hold of
immensely.
Petar and yourself and have a bit of a three chat podcast about eating veggies and
Yeah, throw
which
Jamal
one?
in on that conversation too. That guy was epic
Oh
too.
yeah, geez.
Jamal from Kuwait. I
I
actually just
mean,
started following him as
he
well.
will
Yes,
sit
that man's a
cooking.
legend too.
When we started chatting, I mean, he was like, "Listen, I definitely want to do this. This is awesome, and thank you." And I'm like, "Well, shall we catch up verbally?" He's like, "No, I got to go cook for 3 hours." I'm like, "Geez, dude, 3 hours? What are you doing for 3 hours, bro?" Little did I know he has
He's
four
cooking for a
kids,
little village. Yeah.
him and his wife, and he does part of his Instagram is he puts up, and I'm like, that is impressive, dude. There is no ways 2 or 3 times a week I could cook for 4 hours. I mean, I'm pretty
That is.
efficient, but that is on a very different level. So Zander, Listen, thank you. It's your Saturday morning, and
Whole nother
I have
level.
a blessed weekend. I'm completely in awe with your photos. Um, I love what you're doing, and I love your enthusiasm. And I look forward to hearing all the pros that are coming out from all these projects that you're involved in.
I appreciate that immensely, Anton, and thank you so much for having me.